In this video, you're going to learn the one most powerful lesson that will give you the greatest increase in your win rate. Hi, my name's Hexadecimal, and I've been playing League since Season 2. That's over 10 years. And in that time, I've achieved Challenger over multiple different seasons on multiple different roles and champions. For this guide, I asked myself one simple question. If I had to learn top lane again, what would be the most important thing to learn? What's the one thing that would give me the biggest boost to my win rate that nearly every player gets wrong? Essentially, I distilled that 10 years of experience into the one most important lesson you need to learn as a top laner. Now, don't worry if you don't play top lane, because what you're about to learn will still apply to the other roles and be extremely valuable, I promise. Also, I'm sure as a viewer, you're probably sick of YouTube videos being clickbaited all the time with promises of, this one thing will instantly increase your win rate. But trust me when I say, if there's one guide that can actually deliver on that promise, it's this one. And that's because we here at SkillCapped believe in delivering a product that actually works. Everything we teach, we first put to the test in solo queue games. For example, I've recently created a course teaching how to climb to Diamond in 30 days as a top laner. This course has an insane amount of positive reviews from people just like you. Inside the course, there's 4 premium episodes over 20 minutes long each, where I break down 4 phases of the game every top laner needs to master. In between these episodes, you can then see my actual solo queue games on my climb to Diamond with live commentary and VOD reviews where I show you how to figure out what mistakes you're making and how to fix them. Our service actually works and is why we make it risk-free and keep you safe with rank up insurance. If you don't significantly improve while actively using SkillCapped, then you get your money back, no questions asked. You can learn more at the end of this guide or check us out with the link in the description below. Alright, now if there's one lesson when learned as a top laner that increases your win rate the most, it is understanding the power of rebounds. A rebound is simply when a player has built up a large minion wave, such as Sion has in this clip, and then pushes that big minion wave into the enemy's tower. When a minion wave has a large amount of minions in it, it will be under the tower long enough for the enemy's next wave to get stuck on it. You should memorize this pattern right here, a minion wave getting stuck on the other minion wave under a tower. Sear it into your brain. When you see this, it means a rebound is going to happen. The reason is that when the enemy's wave gets stuck like this, it will allow your incoming minion wave to move much further up the lane. And here's the key, despite both waves being even in minions, 6 minions to 6, since the minions are significantly closer to the enemy's tower, it will result in their next wave arriving in lane earlier and damaging minions first. This additional damage will accumulate and cause a minion advantage over time. This advantage in minions then naturally leads to pushing to the other player. This is why it's called a rebound. You push a big wave into a tower and it effectively bounces off that tower and a big minion wave will eventually come back towards you. Everything about the laning phase when it comes to top lane, trading, harassing, recalling, roaming, to do these things correctly will require you to play around rebounds. This is why it's the most important thing to learn. Alright, so let's go back to the start of this clip. We can see that Sion has a large minion advantage over Darius, 11 minions to 5. This will make it very difficult for Darius to trade effectively because if he fights Sion, he'll also be tanking 11 minions worth of damage. So he backs off, which he should, and the wave will inevitably crash into his tower. As you now know, this large wave will cause a rebound. This moment here, after the wave crashes and the next wave is positioned outside of the tower, is stage 1 of a rebound. During stage 1, the player with the wave closest to their tower, in this case Darius, is the one with a massive advantage. What you're going to find in this guide is that in every stage of a rebound, one player will have the advantage and one player has the disadvantage. So to make things easier to remember and understand, we're going to label each player in a stage as either being green when they have the advantage and being red when they have the disadvantage. For example, Sion can never go for any kind of extended trade as Darius can kite back to the safety of his tower at any point. At the same time, since neither player has a minion advantage yet, it's even 6 to 6, Sion has nothing protecting him from Darius going aggressive on him. Essentially, Darius is free to go aggressive and run down Sion the entire length of the lane if he wants to. Meanwhile, Sion can only try to land short bursts of harass. On top of all of this, Darius is at the safety of his tower completely immune from ganks. Meanwhile, Sion is extremely pushed up, making him vulnerable to being ganked. So what you need to remember is that when in stage 1 of a rebound, the green player, the one with the advantage, is the one closest to their tower, and the red player is the one furthest away. And so this naturally poses the question, what can the red player in stage 1, in this case Sion, do to deal with this? Well, the red player will always have 2 options. First is to clear the wave extremely fast so it pushes into the tower a second time. Since the second wave will be so small, no rebound is going to occur as the wave will die too fast to the tower before the enemy's incoming wave can get stuck on it. This will cause what's referred to as a reset, and the wave will go back to a neutral position in the middle of the lane. Whenever you crash a minion wave into a tower, it will only ever have these two outcomes, resetting or rebounding. Small waves will cause resets, since the tower will clear it before an incoming wave can get stuck on it. Big waves will cause rebounds, since the tower can't clear it fast enough before an incoming wave gets stuck on it. The second option is that Sion can just play super passive and safe, and let the wave push to him, so it will eventually be in a better position for him in the future, closer to his tower. The reason why knowing this is so important is from the perspective of the green player in Stage 1, which is Darius. We really just need to accomplish one goal, prevent the red player from pushing the wave into our tower so he doesn't get that reset on the minion wave. Remember, as the green player, we have the advantage in a rebound, and so we want to prevent a reset which would neutralize our advantage. As we play the clip, you can see that Darius does just that, positioning more aggressively to defend damage to his wave, and as a response, Sion decides to go with option 2, play safe and wait for the wave to push. This is by far the most common outcome you'll see in your games. Now, as the next wave arrives, you can see, as predicted, Darius is starting to get the minion advantage. He has 2 more minions at the moment. This is still stage 1 of a rebound, and so everything we just taught you still applies. Darius wants to prevent Sion from resetting, and Sion wants to sit back and wait for the wave to push to him into a safer position. However, there is one key mistake that can immediately lose you lane that either player can make in this stage, and that mistake is taking a large losing trade. You see, if you're the green player with the push, such as Darius, then if you significantly lose a trade, the red player will zone you off the wave, thin the minions, and just set up a freeze on you. This is lane losing, as you now either have to take a horrible recall timing, where you'll lose a ton of minions, or move forward to try and last it and end up just dying and still losing minions. At the same time, if the red player, Sion in this case, was the one to significantly lose a trade, then the green player can just slowly let the wave push while zoning him. If the red player tries to recall, well, then the green player can just switch to pushing fast and the red player will lose that huge wave to the tower. And if the red player decides to stay, they're just going to get tower dove easily, being so low on health and losing the big wave anyways. Now, I obviously can't teach you every single matchup, who wins a trade when, and how to trade with specific champions into other specific champions, at least not in this video. We have courses for that. That's not the point though. The point is, when you're in stage 1 of a rebound, it's extremely risky for both players to be trading, and so often you want to default to a more defensive, safe playstyle. Essentially, you'll want to be extremely confident in your knowledge of trading and matchups to suddenly be the aggressor in stage 1. Most players aren't aware of this kind of hidden undercurrent happening underneath them with the minions, and so they just treat every moment in the laning phase as equal when it comes to timing a trade, and this is a huge reason why they get hard stuck. Alright, and so the next wave arrives, and this now marks the end of stage 1 of a rebound and the beginning of stage 2. Before we teach you stage 2 though, let's quickly recap what you've learned. A rebound starts when a big wave gets pushed into a tower and the enemy wave gets stuck on it. Once the waves are in front of the tower, stage 1 begins. Identify who is the green player with the advantage and who is the red player with the disadvantage. Green is closest to their tower and red is furthest away. Each of these players have 2 goals each. The first goal of the red player is to clear the wave as fast as he can to create a reset, which means a rebound is no longer happening. The first goal of the green player is to prevent this from happening and to stay in the rebound. The second goal for both players is to take a big winning trade, as they can then both transition into winning their lane. This makes trading very risky in stage 1. Alright, and now we enter stage 2. Firstly, to be clear, the green player and red player in stage 1 are still the exact same in stage 2. Another way though to identify the green player in stage 2 is to look at who has the minion advantage. In this game, Darius is still the green player, as he now has a massive amount of minions built up. This minion advantage will make it very difficult for the enemy champion to fight into him and win a trade. At the same time, the wave still isn't too close to the enemy's tower, so there's still opportunities for Darius to go aggressive while not being too overextended. However, this moment right here, stage 2 of a rebound, is where the vast majority of players win or lose their lane. Here's how. Firstly, the red player in this stage, Sion, should pretty much never try to fight against the push at this point. This is because there will be a lot more enemy minions, and so it will be very difficult to clear them fast enough to actually create a proper reset. Additionally, unlike in stage 1, where a bad trade can ruin the lane for either player, in stage 2 of a rebound, it's often only the red player that can be impacted by a bad trade. For example, if in this position, Darius goes for a trade with Sion and actually loses it, it won't matter because he will have so many minions built up already, he can often just quickly and easily finish pushing the wave into the tower right after. And here's the secret. By pushing that wave into the tower, it will actually cause the same rebound mechanic we just taught you. And so Darius can then use this rebound to just recall, buy items, get his health and mana back, and he actually won't lose very many minions since the wave will now be rebounding back to him as he walks back to lane. Don't worry, we'll explain this scenario in more detail shortly. However, if Sion takes a losing trade as the red player, then he's going to be under threat of being tower dove once that big wave crashes into his tower. You can see in this clip, Sion, as the red player, does in fact make the mistake of trying to fight against the rebound during stage 2, and so Darius does a good job punishing him for it. We'll see the impact of this punish very shortly. Now, as the next wave arrives, we enter the final stage, stage 3. This is marked by the last minion wave that arrives before it will inevitably crash into the opponent's tower. Before we get into stage 3 though, let's again quickly recap what we just learned about stage 2. The green and red players should stay the same, with the green player now having a large minion advantage. It's important for the red player to not take trades, not try to clear the wave, and not take any damage. They need to sit back passively and let it push to them. In comparison, the green player often wants to look for trades, as any winning trades will set up future tactics to win lane, while losing trades can be overcome by crashing the wave into recalling. Alright, so now we enter stage 3, and I know a lot of you are thinking, hey, isn't Sion supposed to get punished here by being tower dove or something? He looks pretty healthy, I don't think a tower dive is possible. And guess what, you're right. However, there's a second way to punish red players for taking bad trades in stage 2, that most players aren't aware of, and it's one of the main reasons they can't carry their games. It should be said though, if Sion was lower in health, then as the green player, Darius, it's pretty simple. You just crash the wave on stage 3 and tower dive the red player to kill him and deny the wave. You can even die during this tower dive and it will still be worth it for you because the red player will often lose more than 2 waves worth of minions. And on top of that, the wave will be rebounding back to you, denying them further minions and giving you a possible freeze. That tower dive would then mark the end of a rebound. However, that's not the case in this current game and won't be the case in a lot of your games. Before we tell you the answer though, see if you can find it for yourself. If you're the Darius in this game, what should be your next move in this position? You should be pushing the wave into the tower and then recalling. Remember, we've built up a big wave, right? And so if we push it in now, it will actually cause another rebound, but this time towards us. So if we crash the wave, then recall, we'll get full health, mana, and an item lead. We can then walk to lane without losing minions since it will be rebounding back towards us. Once you get back to lane, the red player will still be low on health. This then allows you to set up a freeze and either zone that red player, forcing him to take a bad recall timing, or just straight up kill him when he tries to last it. The only way out for the red player will be to use teleport if he has it, which then puts that super valuable summoner spell on a very long cooldown. So, as we go back, to be clear, as Darius, since the enemy isn't low enough to tower dive, our only good option is to crash this wave into the tower. It sets up a recall timing into a freeze off the rebound, and will guarantee some sort of advantage no matter what. What we don't want to do is what you're seeing, sitting here super overextended for a long period of time. It leaves us vulnerable to ganks and it keeps Sion safe at his tower despite being low on health. Darius doesn't understand what we just taught you, and so he does eventually get ganked. Luckily for him, the execution was atrocious by the enemy, but you can see how a lot of your deaths to ganks will actually come from not understanding stage 3 of a rebound. Now, at this point, despite never crashing the wave, we've effectively completed stage 3 and the rebound has ended. Usually, as you learned earlier, Darius should have pushed the wave into the tower, Sion's wave would get stuck on it and it would start rebounding back towards Darius. In this case, instead of the tower damaging the wave, it was Sion, but the outcome still remained the same. We basically ended stage 3 of a rebound and are now in stage 1 of a new rebound. We just got there slightly differently. Before we get into this new rebound though, let's quickly recap once again what you've learned about stage 3. Stage 3 is defined by the last minion wave that arrives before it will inevitably crash into the opponent's tower. The green player should always look to tower dive the red player if he's low enough on health, even if he has to trade deaths to do it, as denying the big wave will always make it worth it. Otherwise, the green player should look to recall once the big wave is pushed into the tower, as it will cause a rebound for himself. This gives him full health, mana, and an item advantage, and he can head back to lane without losing very many minions since it's rebounding back towards him. Once in lane, they can then look to thin the wave and set up a freeze on the enemy and force him into a losing position. Alright, and so now we've entered a new rebound. What a surprise. Like I said, top lane is just rebounds over and over again. So we can now apply the same lessons we just taught you about stage 1. That would mean that this wave state is great for Sion and terrible for Darius, if it's left as is. Darius is overextended with no minion advantage to protect him. Meanwhile, Sion is near the safety of his tower, and so Darius is the red player and Sion is the green player. So the red player has to decide whether to try and push this wave before it builds up too much so he can cause a reset, or he can back off and play passive and let it push to him. The green player then has to decide whether to stand his ground and prevent the reset or not. You can see a very similar pattern emerge as before. Sion plays defensive in his wave, and Darius plays passive as it pushes back towards him. All seems normal until we hit stage 2 of the rebound. Remember what we taught you, the red player in stage 2, which is now Darius, should pretty much never try to fight against the push at this point. This is because he'll both be fighting into a massive minion wave, and even if he wins a trade, the green player, Sion, can quickly and easily finish pushing the wave right after and set up a recall timing with his own rebound. This would again result in Sion being able to have full health, mana, an item advantage, and set up a freeze off the rebound. You've all heard it before. Now, this is all true in theory, but in reality, in your own games, mistakes happen. Sion's mistakes in the previous rebound have actually now made it impossible for him to punish Darius for fighting back in the current rebound. Firstly, remember that earlier mistake we highlighted when he tried to fight against the push in stage 2 and took a losing trade to Darius. Well, this is why he's now lower in health than Darius. And secondly, he's completely out of mana, and although this may seem unrelated to rebounding, it isn't. Regardless of your champion or mana cost, if you're in this spot, clearly in a stage 1 of a rebound as the red player, if you've decided you're going to play passive and let it push into you, then you should be conserving mana for once the wave crashes and rebounds back to the enemy. Or, another way to put it is don't waste your mana when you're the red player in the current rebound, because you're going to need it when you're the green player in the next rebound. You can see how even after the initial mistake of taking a trade during stage 2, Sion continues to waste a ton of mana instead of just saving it for the upcoming rebound that he'll have. And yes, for those wondering, sometimes that will mean giving up last hits as the red player in stage 2 to avoid taking losing trades or getting too low on mana. This is why when Darius, as the red player, then eventually makes the exact same theoretical mistake in stage 2 as Sion, fighting against a push when he theoretically shouldn't, he can't actually be punished. So here's a question I have for you. What should Darius do in this position to get a lane-winning lead? We actually taught you this at the beginning of the guide. If the red player can take a winning trade, then the punish will always be to thin the wave and set up a freeze on the green player. This way, Darius could zone Sion and force a bad recall timing, causing him to lose a ton of farm, or kill him when he moves to try and last hit. Instead, this Darius doesn't know what you just learned, and so instead of freezing, he starts pushing. This not only results in him not being able to punish Sion by zoning him for minions, but he's actually the one who ends up losing minions to his tower due to that mistake. And surprise, surprise, even now at the 9-minute mark, we're back into another rebound. Stage 1 with Darius as the green player and Sion as the red. You can see how top lane is just taking turns rebounding, and how by implementing what you've just learned, it will single-handedly win you the lane. If we literally go back to the start of the laning phase, you'll see two things. First is that for the first 7 minutes and 30 seconds of laning, both players are just taking turns rebounding. And second, since neither player knows what we just taught you, they missed out on lane winning moments, and so by the 9-minute mark, nothing has happened and they're both still even. Alright, now I hope you've been paying attention because you're about to be tested on what you just learned. Let's go back to the very start of this laning phase. As we all know, the wave starts in a neutral position, but soon, one player will get the push advantage. In this case, it was Sion. Let's pause it here. I want you to tell me, what stage are we in, and who's the green and red player? We're in stage 2, and Sion is the green player and Darius is red. Despite no actual rebound occurring, the wave started in a reset neutral position. You can see how the stages we've taught you will still apply as long as you recognize the inherent patterns. Now let's move forward to the next minion wave. Let's pause it here. Again, what stage are we in, and who's the green and red player? We're now in stage 3. This is the last wave before the minions will inevitably crash into the tower. Sion is green and Darius is red. As the wave crashes into the tower, what should Sion do as the green player? The green player will always have two options in stage 3. First is to tower dive and kill the enemy, or to recall once the wave crashes. Sion should be recalling here since the tower dive is impossible. He's already at half mana, and so recalling would fill that up, and he could spend his 400 gold for an item advantage. Meanwhile, the minions would rebound back to him as we taught you, and so we could look to try and thin the wave and set up a freeze on Darius with his item advantage when he gets back to lane. The fact that Sion didn't do this and stayed in lane instead not only prevented him from getting that advantage, but also contributed to him being out of mana and in such a bad position later on. So, hopefully you can now see how everything from the very start of the laning phase requires you to play around rebounds. Now, if you found this guide useful and want to learn more, then I highly recommend you check out my top lane course on how to get diamond in 30 days. The first 2 episodes in the course will go into further detail on this concept of rebounding and how to snowball with it. while the last 2 episodes will show you what to do after the laning phase ends as a top laner. In between each of these episodes, you can see how I implement the rebounding strategy in real solo queue games with live commentary, and VOD reviews where I show you how to figure out what mistakes you're making and how to fix them. This course has an insane amount of positive reviews from users just like you. Our service actually works and is why we make it risk-free and keep you safe with rank up insurance. If you don't significantly improve while actively using skill capped, then you get your money back. No questions asked. Check us out with the link in the description below to improve fast and get that rank you've always wanted. Alright, and that concludes the one most important lesson that every top laner should learn. We here at Skill Capped want to thank you for watching. Good luck on Summoner's Rift, and we'll catch you in the next one.